Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Bleav.
For fans wanting more than just the score, Warhawk Report dives deeper into ULM athletics with expert analysis, recruiting updates, behind-the-scenes access, and real-time updates. Whether you are a diehard fan or just curious about the Warhawks, we've got you covered. Subscribe today at warhawkreport.com. Smart coverage, real insights, all Warhawks. warhawkreport.com.
Doesn't matter if you were an Indian or if you're a Warhawk.
The ULM mention is the greatest. You'd hope for the best as a ULM fan, but
this is the Bleav in the Warhawks podcast with hosts Dusty Thibodeaux and Chase Regent.
Chase, you always have such great insight.
Dibs is going to bleep it all.
What are these guys always talking about?
We talk a lot about food on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Really, really appreciative of the people and the community and the way that they've backed us up.
Nailed the introduction, by the way. Awesome.
Thanks,
I love
Fish.
it.
Chase missing in action, and so I am here flying solo, getting ready for what could be one of the bigger games of the season early on. Week 4 matchup, traveling out to El Paso against UTEP, and Zay Galindo joins us to talk about the UTEP Miners. Zay, welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. You know, we're inching closer towards the season, so can never pass up the opportunity to talk some college football, specifically UTEP and Louisiana Monroe.
Last year, 3-9 overall, but all 3 of those wins in Conference USA action, 2 of which coming at home. How do you kind of sum up that 2024 season for the Miners?
Yeah, you know, it was kind of like a year zero for Coach Scotty Walden. It was his first year, and, you know, he came in hot, but I can't judge too much of those 3 wins, you know, because that team was just so incomplete at the end of the day. And I think that he's been able to kind of establish, you know, where he wants to be, establish his culture and everything now. So I think those 3 wins were important. You know, 3 wins is a lot more than 2 at the end of the day, and they were able to win 2 of their last 3 games of the season, especially, you know, a road game at New Mexico State, which is, you know, UTEP's biggest rival, and that has just brought a lot of momentum into the offseason and going into this next year.
Miners open up this upcoming season, the 25 season, at Utah State, home for UT Martin, and then a big in-state game against UT before they host the Warhawks, who will be coming into the game after a bye. How important is this ULM game to kind of get things settled, or do you feel that it's just another non-conference game and something to kind of continue working your way into that next week where you open up CUSA play against Louisiana Tech?
Yeah, the ULM game is probably it's really big. You know, it's the premier non-conference home game that UTEP's going to have. It's, you know, it's coming off of that Texas game, and even before that, you know, you have Utah State and UT Martin. Regardless of how those games go, that Louisiana ULM, there we go again. I'm saying Louisiana Monroe, but that game is important. You know, a lot of fans are going to be tapped into that one because that's a team that a lot of people see. That's UTEP's level, right? That's a game that, you know, if you are who you say you are, Scotty Walden and his crew, they're hyping up a bunch. If you are that good, this is a game where you should win. You know, if you want to be in contention for 7-8 wins, this has got to be a win on the schedule. So it's a big game, and you lose it, you go into conference play on a down, you know, no momentum, because you're going to be more than likely you're coming off a big loss at Texas, right? And depending on how that home opener game against Utah State goes, season opener, you know, you could really be facing a 1-3 Louisiana Tech team if you lose that Monroe game. So, you know, it's a big game for the Miners.
Yeah, it's very much like ULM opening up with D3 transitional school at the end of the year, St. Francis, and then going to Alabama, then a bye week. A lot of people aren't a fan of that bye week, but I kind of like it because it gives you a chance to kind of reset going into the UTEP game and see where you are, what's worked, what hasn't, and really get ready. Because much like you said, the UTEP game's huge for ULM. That's kind of a one of us type of game. They're right on par with the Sun Belt Conference action that we will see even the following week against Arkansas State. So yeah, it's a must win. It's pretty heavily circled, and so I think it'll be a great game. I am looking forward to it. Never been to a football game at UTEP, so anxious there. Been out there a couple of times, and we'll talk later, obviously, because we always talk food here. We'll get your food recommendations later. But first up, Conference USA. Is it me, or is Conference USA kind of on the ropes, and are they kind of falling by the wayside, especially with Louisiana Tech belling for Sunbelt? Or do you feel that that's just kind of the nature of everybody's going to be jockeying for the better position for them?
Yeah, I think Conference USA, I want to say they're on the ropes, but they're going to, at the end of the day, they're likely going to pull another FCS school, and they're just going to get by. You know, they're going to get by the way that they know how to. You know, they've done this before. They've done this plenty of times in the past. You know, they lost a lot of teams in the early 2000s when they barely started up. You know, mid 2010s, maybe 2011, 2012, you lose Houston, East Carolina, Memphis, and all them, right? And they've just found a way to survive. So I think at this point, you know, they lost North Texas and all them to the American a couple years ago, right? They're going to end up losing UTEP and Louisiana Tech. But at the end of the day, you know, they're going to survive. And, you know, I love that for them. I love Conference USA. It's a weird conference, but, you know, I love weird stuff. I love these weird midweek action games. You know, I love these horrible endings to some of these games, these 6-10 games or something. I mean, it's the sicko in me, but I absolutely love it.
I feel like that's a mention there for Commissioner of the Sickos Committee is a ULM grad, just as your notable alumni there. But Conference USA does things a little bit differently. No preseason poll, more of a how likely are you to go to a bowl game? UTEP coming in at 41%. Is that kind of fair that they're roughly a 50-50 shot of going into the postseason?
You know, that's honestly really, really good for UTEP. You know, this is if you're giving UTEP, you know, a 40% chance to go 500, that's big because it's not a common thing here. UTEP hasn't won a bowl game since 1967. They haven't won a bowl game outside of the Sun Bowl ever. And in general, you know, this is a bad program historically. And 7 wins, 6 wins, that's a very, very successful year. So that given that chance, you know, a lot of fans are excited. And I think that is fair, you know, seeing the talent that's on this team. They've had back-to-back #1 recruiting classes in Conference USA. So I think the opportunity to go to a bowl game is there. And I think I agree with that 40%-ish.
What's the identity of this Miners team? Are they more of an offensive team or are they a defensive team?
Yeah, they're definitely more of an offensive team. You know, I think that Scotty Walden, he's not going to shy away from it. He is an offensive-minded coach, and he calls the plays. You know, he's all hands. His hands are all over that offense. They hired a new offensive coordinator this offseason in Mark Kalla, but, you know, he's more of just a glorified quarterback coach at times. You know, it's Scotty Walden's offense, and he really does believe that he has a very fast, high-powered offense that if he gets it right, we saw it at Austin Peay, can be very, very dangerous.
Even though they're an offensive team, I mean, it all starts with the quarterback. And it's a 4-way battle right now with a guy from Austin Peay that came in there, Skylar Locklear, as well as Malachi Nelson, a former 5-star from Boise State, the true freshman Chase Smith, even with a shot, and then senior returner Cade McConnell. How do you see that quarterback battle kind of shaking out as you get ready for fall camp?
Yeah, so I went to practice the other day. The fall camp just begun, and yeah, it really is a 4-person battle, but a lot of people want to cut it down to Locklear and Nelson, when in reality, it might be that. But I think that all 4 have a real shot. You know, McConnell, he started some games in 2023. He led them to some wins, and last year he won over the starting spot in the middle of the year before getting injured. And he led them to a couple of wins, almost a comeback win at Colorado State. He played really, really good before a season-ending injury. Locklear, you know, he found his groove at the end of the year last year, so he has the most momentum. He's the most familiar with Scotty's system. He followed him from Austin Peay, like you said. You know, Malachi Nelson, you see the arm. He has the 5-star arm. It's there. It's just a matter of, can you put things together, right? Can you piece together the little things? Can you read the defenses better? Can he be more mature both on and off the field? And that's a big question for him. And then, Shea Smith, he's a redshirt freshman. He's a hometown kid. His dad played at UTEP. He went to the NFL. He's UTEP legend in the sense, and he wants to be just like him. He's a quarterback, but he's about 6'3", 210 pounds, and he can move freakishly. He's a freak athlete. He's really, really big, really fast, and I can see him, fitting his way through this Scotty Wallen offense. So it really is a four-person battle, and whoever it is, they're going to have plenty of weapons to throw to. I don't think that's the issue. That offensive line is a bit shaky, but there's going to be big expectations that whoever takes those starting snaps in about a month from now.
You mentioned the targets there. Who are some of the big targets there? And also talk about the run game, because, I know that UTEP's not a one-dimensional team. They're definitely two-dimensional with a pass and solid ground game as well.
Yeah, I mean, the skill players offensively are really, really good this year. They did lose one of their projected starters in Jaden Smith. He ended up tearing his ACL again. He tore it last year early in the year. He was having a pretty nice season. But even without him, they have plenty of guys that are ready to step up. And one of them is Cam Thomas. He's this little 5'7", 5'8", scat back kind of guy. They call him the minor back. He's really just a slot receiver and a halfback all in one. He's freakishly quick. You get the ball in his hands and you just let him go to work. He's one of those guys that just get the ball to him in any way you can and let him move with it. He can make his own plays. And then you have Kenny Odom, the all-conference guy. He was probably the star of last year's team. He had about over 800 yards, and he's really fast. You put this guy on a go route, and you just throw it up to him. If it's one-on-one coverage, you just throw it up to him. He can make the grab, he can make the play, and he's without a doubt probably, I think, the best player on this team right now.
The defense, known as the Orange Swarm, I was surprised to see they were the Conference USA leaders in sacks and tackles for loss, 20th in the FBS for sacks. Is the defense as good as advertised?
Last year they were really good. They were an exciting team to watch. I think good, maybe a little bit of a stretch, because you can't be that good when you're 3-9, right? But they were exciting. They made plays. They were scheming, sacks, scheming, interceptions, scheming turnovers, kind of like that Dan Quinn defense in Dallas when they had a couple years ago, right? They would give up yards, they would give up big plays, but at the same time, they were forcing turnovers, they're getting interceptions, stuff like that. And it's going to be different this year. J.J. Clark, he left, the defensive coordinator from last year. He left for the NFL. He's now an assistant with the Cowboys, and they ended up hiring Montana State defensive coordinator Bobby Daly to come in and replace him. So that defense is to be determined. They have a lot of stars coming back from there, more or less in the secondary. Last year was a very front seven. That front seven was the strength of it. So we'll see how this defense looks. They have a lot of transfers coming in on there, and they have a lot of veteran experience as well. So I'm not sure they're going to be as exciting, but we'll see if they can, improve those numbers a little bit.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Super Sale and get 40% off paints and stains August 8th through the 14th. With prices starting at $29.39, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
I'm a special teams guy. I love the special teams. Noah Botsford comes in from Valdosta State. The guy had a 42-yard per punt average, 17 inside the 20, 11 that were 50 or more. How exciting is that to be coming to UTEP this season?
Yeah, that is exciting because, the punting game, special teams as a whole, was really, really bad last year. It was subpar. And, special teams can win you games. Like you said, you're a big special teams guy, and so am I. I think that you need a good field goal kicker, you need a good punter, and you need a good, return team, both punt and kickoff, right? And UTEP really had none of that last year. So They're going to be much improved, I think. They brought in a lot of starters. They have about 6 or 7 kickers on the roster right now. We have no clue who's going to start, but I mean, you got to hit on at least one of those guys decently, right? Well, one of those guys has to be somewhat good. So, yeah, it is exciting to have a good punter on the team. It's exciting to hopefully have a good kicker, and we'll see if that special teams as a whole can improve.
It seemed like, especially at ULM, that spring ball was kind of locked down, almost like, nope, we don't have a team, nothing to see here. Was that kind of the attitude at UTEP as well, trying to protect players from any kind of tampering or poaching through the transfer portal?
Yeah, I want to say yes, but at the end of the day, I don't think so, because the previous coaching staff, they didn't even have a spring game. It was just kind of laid down. And the thing with Scotty is he loves to build momentum. He loves to build headlines. And they had a big spring game. They do the spring sale every year. They bring alumni in to draft the players on each team. They really blow this spring game out of the water. And at the end of the day, yeah, you're going to lose players. I think Scotty has kind of accepted that, especially at a place like UTEP or at a place like Louisiana Monroe. ULM, there we go again. But I think he knows they're going to lose players. He knows players are going to get poached. I mean, they poached a corner that hadn't even played a real regular season snap for the Miners, that he signed in the winter, left in the spring. That's just how it goes. And yeah, I didn't think that they kind of protected their players in the way that other schools might have.
How does UTEP kind of handle NIL and that whole new era of college football?
Yeah, so I think that UTEP is a basketball school. Basketball got NIL way before football. Football barely started giving NIL out, I think, last year. So they're building slowly, but they're building surely. I think they have, I don't want to say a set number. I know it's definitely under $1 million for the whole team. It might be 6 to 7 to 8, around that range is what, a lot of people project it as. And I think that, I don't know how they spend it. I know, a good chunk probably went to Nelson. He's a 5-star quarterback. We know he had other suitors as well. So I think NIL is growing here at UTEP, especially for the football team, but you need to see some wins before it really explodes.
What's the attraction there of UTEP? Like why do people want to go to UTEP? What are some good game day traditions also?
Yeah, I think the big one is the Sun Bowl. It really is unbeatable. You hear about it on Twitter a little bit, but it's just so crazy. It's a stadium nestled into the mountain. You have a phenomenal view. You look over and it's Mexico. It's a whole other country. But beyond that, Mexico, the Franklin Mountains are in the background. You have the downtown skyline, which I think is underrated at times. You have unbelievable sunsets. It's great weather if you're a person who likes the sun. You're gonna get the sun all the time. It doesn't get very cold. And I just think that Scotty is really turned things around for this program, in the sense that it's not just that little school in El Paso, right? He recruits Texas hard. He's made the program more serious. I think they're serious on par with other major group of 5 schools, and I think that he's really made it a place for Texas high school football recruits to come play, immediately.
I know this is his second year coming up, but what was the reason for the change? Was the program just not growing, just not meeting expectations there of the administration, or what was the reason for the change for him to even come in last year?
Yeah, the former coaching staff, they came in 2018 after a 2017 year that was absolutely horrendous. They were one of the worst teams in college football of all time. They went 0-12. And they hired Coach Dana Dimmel. Rest in peace. He passed away this offseason. He was a good coach. He rebuilt this program because it was below ground zero. It was absolutely horrible. It was such a dumpster fire, and he did a good job of getting it back to where it needs to be. But like you said, there was just no growth after a set of time, right? They had a lot of expectations that they just never delivered on. They made a bowl in 2021, won 5 games in 2022, and that was the year that they were expected to do a lot. The next year, they returned a lot, expected to win a lot of games, and they went 3-9, and it just never really worked out. So, yeah, that was really the main reason why they bought in Coach Walden. He was an unexpected hire, to say the least. It was down to a lot of different guys. And when you go out and hire an FCS coach from Austin P that no one really even expected, it definitely shocked people. But I think he's won over the fans very, very easily. He's a lively guy, and I think a lot of people agree with the hire as of right now.
This is the back end of a home and home, knowing that UTEP came to Malone Stadium in Monroe, Louisiana in 2020, the COVID year. And I found the highlights where there were maybe 6 people in the stands. I don't remember if it was regulations or what was going on. Is this something, though, that kind of excites the UTEP fan base, playing kind of that regional-ish type of rivalry? Or are they, now that they're headed into the Mountain West, they're looking more out west for those games?
I think that as a whole, UTEP used to be in the WAC, so they have a lot of rivalries, old rivalries that run deeper when you go west. And I think that's just how it is around here. El Paso is at the end of the day, it's on the far west tip of Texas. So culturally, you're more connected with the UNLVs or Nevada or Colorado states of the world. So whenever those teams come to the Sun Bowl, it's a bit more packed. But Louisiana Monroe, it's I don't know if people are going to come out just for the name Louisiana Monroe. Oh, I'm doing it again, man. I just can't get out of the the groove of saying it. I don't think
we've been called worse, so yeah, it's all good.
I don't think people will come out just simply because it's ULM, but I do think it is a hyped game. It's a hyped game because of both squads, how similar they are. The programs historically haven't been amazing. And so when you have a team that's on par with you in a year that you're expected to do a lot, you're probably going to get a good crowd. So I don't think that regionally it's the most exciting game for fans, but I think just because of the identical, program trajectories at times, this is a game that a lot of fans will show up to.
For those, and I know there's several ULM fans, at least on my message board, Warhawk Report, that have said that they're making the trek out to El Paso. What is there to do on a game day? Tell me what game day's like out there in El Paso.
Yeah, so game day, it starts early. Even when UTEP is bad, you have a good tailgating scene. I won't sit here and lie. It is pretty fun. Usually beautiful days, and it's nice because the games are at night. It'll be an afternoon game, so it won't be hot. You're going to enjoy a lot of festivities. They brought a lot of cool things in. They have live music outside the stadium beforehand. They have games outside the stadium beforehand. You grab a bite to eat somewhere before. Mesa Street is it's the street that UTEP's on. It's a really, really lively street. Probably, the most visitor friendly, I'd say. There's a lot of stuff to do there, a lot of places to eat, a lot of bars to go to. Overall, it's a nice game day experience. It's I might be partially biased, but I've been to other games. All right, I've been to NMSU. I've been to other games around the area in the FBS level, and I just don't think they compare when it comes to game day experience like UTEP. It's a pretty fun game day.
I mentioned earlier, I've been to UTEP a handful of times. Not to UTEP, to El Paso, rather. Excuse me. Carlos and Mickey's. It's the greatest around. Is there a place better than that we got to make sure that we hit up?
It's arguable. You can ask 10 different El Pasoans, and they're going to say 10 different answers because there's just a lot of good food here. If you've never really had Mexican food or anything like that, if that's something that, maybe is just not where you are, then El Paso's a place for you if you want to try it, because it's probably the most authentic you're going to get without going to Mexico itself. I mean, it's right on the border. There's a lot of local places that are really good, but I mean, I'm going to give the boring answer here is Chico's Tacos. I don't think it's the most famous one locally. You ask anybody, you say, you got to go to Chico's Tacos if you're in town, and they're just rolled up flauta tacos in a bit of a sauce and cheese, and I mean, it's insane. It's insane how good they are. It's a little controversial because some people really hate it. Some people absolutely hate it. Some locals despise that place, but for the most part, it's the most famous. It's the best in my opinion, and yeah. But Carlos Mickey's is good. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. It's a great atmosphere as well. But yeah, my pick is Chico's Tacos.
Interesting. Always great there to talk football, and I'm more excited than ever about my trip to El Paso for this upcoming game. Zay, I can't thank you enough. Tell everybody where they can find out more about you and about your coverage of the Miners.
No, thank you for having me on. And, I'm Zay Galindo. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or I guess X and Instagram at UTEP Zay. I co-host 2 podcasts for the Miners, one call-in show after every game called Miner Talk. And the other one is the Pater Pulse podcast, part of the Dave Campbell's Texas Republic of Football podcast group. And I love talking football, love talking college football, high school football, any sport. I love sports in general, man. If you want to talk tennis with me, I'll find a way to talk tennis with you. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Looking forward to talking to you on game week again.
Yes. Thank you for having me on. I had a blast.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Super Sale and get 40% off paints and stains August 8th through the 14th. With prices starting at $29.39, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.